very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is Leicestershire's County Cricket Club chairman, which captures the life of a seasoned sports businessman and entrepreneur, and now the current chairman of Leicestershire County Cricket Club. He has crossed the boundaries of cricket with senior executive roles and ownership of a Premier League football club too, of course, plus an English Football League side along the way too. Not forgetting a flirtation with Rugby League along the way. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Sean Jarvis. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Lord Russell, thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm privileged to be invited. I guess it's a bit of imposter syndrome, really, but it's great to be invited. So thank you.
No, you're absolutely welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show too, because you've got a great background, huge background in sport and business, so really exciting. So I'm going to start from the beginning. You spent 6 years with Oldham Athletic as marketing director, started in 2000, and a huge project you had taken on too, Sean, particularly with Oldham Athletic's new ground project at Failsworth, hitting the buffers. A tough start, you could say, Sean, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, I'll just rewind a little
Oh,
bit, if
please
I
do.
may,
You can.
simply because when we come to Leicestershire, I think you'll probably see the reason why I'm at Leicestershire. I was a Leicester lad.
Yes.
I was born and bred in Leicester, but then when I was 18, I moved up to the north of England, moved to live in Yorkshire, and then went through a series of advertising agencies in the 1980s, having studied at Trinity, which is part of Leeds University up
Yes.
there. I then spent a number of years in advertising land in the late 80s, which was great fun. Learned a huge amount, but then moved from there into Oldham Athletic, and it was an amazing 7 years I spent at Oldham Athletic, with one or two very interesting years, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I moved into Oldham. It was a great place. Moved there as marketing manager. Worked with the board on what was the ITV digital time back then when that was
Wow.
launched,
Yes.
and it was really, really quite exciting time in football. Oldham were in League One at that time, and it was a very much a community club with a great history, having been in the Premier League. But yeah, we always had great aspirations for Oldham, and what we wanted to achieve there. But for me, spending 7 years there was truly a special chapter of my life, if you like.
No, absolutely. No, I quite agree with that. And of course, the Failsworth project, hitting the buffers, as I previously mentioned, it was the latest in a stream of stalled projects, I understand, at the time, dating right back to the ill-fated sports park in 2000, designed to either upgrade or scrap the current home of the old Boundary Park. I mean, a baptism of fire, Sean, wasn't it, surely?
Yeah, Boundary Park, Joe Royal used to
Mm.
call it Ice Station Zebra. Uh, and I think
Brilliant.
it's the second highest stadium in the country, I believe,
Mm.
after West Brom. But there was one part of the ground that never got any sunlight.
Oh, well.
So I think Joe, that's why Joe called it Ice Station Zebra. It was severely cold, and when you're in that part of Lancashire, if you like, on the border of Yorkshire and Lancashire, when the snow came, it came heavy
Oh,
and very, very cold. So it's a stadium that has been weather battered for over 100 and odd years now, and I think it was always the plan to try and update that stadium. And
mm.
when I joined, it was always a bit of a pipe dream, but there was talks around moving to Failsworth, which is kind of Manchester City territory.
Mm.
But the Oldham faithful didn't really like that, and it was more a case of the Oldham faithful wanted to stay put at Boundary Park, which has now, since my time, has had a bit of a facelift. There's a lovely new stand there.
Mm.
So yeah, it is a cold stadium, and I remember Neil Warnock used to have one or two little tactics as well because it was so cold. What he used to do when he was manager there, he used to turn up the heat in the away dressing room so that it was piping hot. And of course, when the opposition went in, it was all very comfortable. But when they actually then walked out onto the pitch where it was about -10, they felt it. And I'm sure it was part of his tactics to get that little bit of advantage over the
Yes.
opposition when Oldham played them. So, but Oldham's got a tremendous history of its ground. I think it was one of the first for the artificial pitch, which was before my time. But
Mm.
yeah, great club, great people, and as I say, spent a fantastic 7 years there.
Yeah, incredible. I used to have a friend actually I worked with when I was many, many years ago now, and he was an Oldham supporter, Oldham Athletic supporter, and he moved his family and his wife, everything, to a house right opposite or right next to the ground. He was so ardent in terms of the sport of the club. And he got a nickname called Biffo. I won't explain exactly what it means, but it's big ignorant, and you can work out what the third letter word is. Big ignorant from Oldham. They called him Biffo, and he's an incredible character, a very intelligent guy, but he was an ardent Oldham Athletic supporter. Anyway, there we go.
Lord Russell,
Fantastic.
I think I can recall a Biffo character. I'm
Oh,
pretty
really?
sure. When I
That
was
might
there, I
be
got to
him.
know a lot of them, and to this day, a lot
Yeah.
of them are still friends. And yeah, that rings a bell with me. I'm sure he'd be
Wow.
a chatty ender, I would imagine.
It probably is one and the same character. It probably is. Incredible. Small world, isn't it?
Fabulous.
Yeah, it is indeed. But you hoped that the board of directors, of course, at Oldham, would keep on searching for a solution. But Boundary Park is still the home of Oldham Athletic Football Club, as you've just said, and of course playing their football now in the National League. So, is there a fight back? Do you think for them at some point?
Yeah, I believe, and I know Joe Royal is now back at the club along with his son, Dan, not, sorry, Lee
Yes.
Royal, and for me, I think they make a formidable pair, actually. The knowledge that they've got with
Mm,
Joe, and I know Frank, the chairman, very passionate about the club from Manchester Cabins. I think it's only a question of time before that club starts to get back into the football league and maybe even climb up the divisions.
mm.
I keep an eye on them, of course, for a very short period of time. I actually own the football club, and I hold them very close to my heart and kind of watch what they're up to. And I think they're on the way back.
Yes.
I'm hoping to go and see them over the Christmas period to watch a game, taking a game. So, but what I hear is they're a very strong unit. They're developing well. So I think it won't be too long before they're back in the EFL and competing at the top level again. I mean, they were one of the founders of the Premier League.
They were indeed, you're right. Yes, they did have that season also in the Premier League going back. Um, but they always, to me, were always as the old second division side, now Championship. They spent many years in the second division, didn't they, Oldham Athletic?
Yeah,
And
yeah, had some tremendous players, including
yeah,
Andy Ritchie,
yes,
Earl Barrett, Frankie Bunn, Roger Palmer. Some Mick Milligan, Dennis Irwin, of course. So
yes, of course.
some real caliber of players under Joe Royal, and it's sad to see their demise, but as I say, I do think they're on the way back.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And of course, let's not forget they had that wonderful FA Cup run, didn't they? Going back, I think they got to the semi-finals, didn't they? I'm sure it was the semi-finals.
Yeah,
Going back and
people say that had they won that game against Manchester United,
yes,
Alex Ferguson would have got the sack.
oh
But it was Mark
yes.
Robbins that scored the goal that meant that they went on, and then I think the rest is history with Alex Ferguson, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. I think Alex Ferguson came close a couple of times. I think he had to win the League Cup, didn't he? That ill-fated season,
That's
which
right.
he did, and that
That's
saved
right.
him as well. And as you say, the rest is history. Crikey.
Yeah.
What a fantastic manager he was.
Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, you did state at the time, Sean, and I'll quote, I feel for the staff and supporters at Oldham who are suffering possibly from a lack of vision on the part of those who could make it happen. The greater good of the community is something that should be thought about when it comes to processes like this. Oh, quite right too. After all, Sean, a football club is always the heartbeat of the community, isn't it? It's like the church or the local shop.
Yeah, without question, no matter how big your football club or rugby club or American football club is,
Mm,
and I use Manchester United as an example, no matter how big it is, it remains inside that community
it does.
and must never ever forget the importance of its community and what it can deliver for its community.
Mm,
And for me, I think that is a huge part of every club's DNA, whether it be Philadelphia Eagles, whether it be Manchester United, Huddersfield Town,
mm,
Leicestershire County Cricket, whoever it is, their DNA is made up of that community. So that runs through. And the only way you resonate with your community is if you understand that and understand what your community is about. Of course, we've all got aspirations to win the FA Cup, win the Premier League, win the
mm.
county championship, whatever it may be. But never ever forget your roots or where you're from.
Quite right.
And I do think a lot of clubs do that nowadays. They almost think they are global brands, which some are, and that's nothing wrong with that. But never ever forget your roots. And my dear old mum, she used to say that. So you know,
Yes.
wherever you go, Leicester will always be your home.
Yeah, I quite agree with that too. It will. Wherever you're born, it's your hometown, isn't it? And you should never forget your roots. Quite rightly so too. And I think you're right. A lot of clubs, particularly in the Premier League, have kind of failed their supporter base in some way, haven't they? Becoming that global product. It's lost that. And I can name some clubs in particular. I mean Chelsea, for example. Um, that they it's everyone wears half and half scarves there now. Where's the fan base? It's gone. That natural support. And that's happened to a lot of Premiership sides, isn't it, to be honest?
I think so, yeah. And I think, where clubs have come from, that they've started in their community. And
Mm,
invariably, if you look at the history of all the clubs, they kind of that will be in their DNA. And I always remember when we worked at Huddersfield Town, that was a northern town, very hard working,
mm.
and that was always part of the DNA and the culture that we tried to create with inside that club. And I think if you capture that culture and that culture resonates with the fan base, then
Mm,
the power of that is huge. It then starts to emanate itself on the pitch. And I think every club, every sports club will have its own DNA and its own culture. And we've got one here. And I actually think here at Leicestershire, it was lost for a while, and
mm.
we've actually unearthed it, rediscovered what the culture is, and started to bring that back. And I think if clubs do that, then they really start to empower the fan base to get behind the club as well. No matter how big you are, how big or how small you are, understanding your culture, your fan base, your community, I think is absolutely paramount.
I agree with you completely, Sean. It's absolutely the right way to think. It truly is. I mean, you also owned, as you said earlier on, Oldham Athletic Football Club. So how did this come about? I mean, you didn't just suddenly own it, did you? You were working there, and all of a sudden you became the owner of the club, the CEO, the chairman. I mean, how did that come about? It's an interesting
Yeah,
story.
Lord Russell, it was a very bizarre couple of years.
Yes.
I'd worked at Oldham Athletic and worked under the board, trying to develop the club, and that was great fun. But then the board at the time decided to sell the club. So they actually put an advert in the Financial Times,
Oh,
Oldham
really?
Athletic for sale.
Wow.
And a number of people came forward, and one individual, wealthy individual from Stockport, actually, he was on the lookout to try and buy a club. I think he tried to buy Stockport County, but had failed at that time. And anyway, Oldham Athletic came forward, and he came forward and agreed a deal with with the board at the time. So he took over. He was a gentleman called Chris Moore,
Mm.
who had a business called Torex. I think it was Torex Retail, which was a software business. A wealthy individual, and he bought the club, and then sort of changed the board. The old board, if you like, they moved away. They were made up of old people that had been supporters of Oldham Athletic for a very long time, and it was almost their chance to then get out, if you like. But Chris came in. Chris came in and then created a board of people that he knew, and he'd got business associates involved on the board, this, that, and the other.
Mm.
And I worked for Chris for a couple of years, and it was a real roller coaster of a ride. And at one point, I think we got to the playoff semi-finals against Queens Park Rangers. We'd drawn the first leg, but got beat in the second leg by a Paul Furlong goal. And at that point, the owner, Chris Moore, his life had started to change. I think he'd had one or two issues domestically.
Hmm.
I think there were one or two issues on his business life as well. That he then decided it was time to move away from Oldham Athletic. Now, in that period of time, um, he'd built up debts of around about £6 million, which he could afford to. But Chris at the time then decided, well, I'm not putting a single penny more in. I'm not paying any wages. So it was quite a
Oof.
frantic and quite fraught time. We had a lot of people at the club who'd been there a long time
Yes.
that were concerned about their livelihoods, because what on earth is going to happen here? Anyway, um, Chris decided he'd move away. The players started to exercise their rights, because if you've not been paid for a fortnight
Oh, yes.
at the time, you could exercise your right to leave the club. So we had players like Chris Armstrong, Fitzhall, good footballers that had
Yes.
value, that were saying, "Well, look, I'm going to have to exercise my right and go and play for another team," which you could understand.
Mm.
Now, at that time, the board that Chris had brought in, were all his friends, they just disappeared. So I actually found myself being the most senior individual in this circumstance, and
Wonderful.
all the staff that had been there a bit long in the tooth were saying to me, "What shall we do?" So I'm kind of scratching my head, and for a whole summer, I spent every day and night trying to find a buyer of Oldham Athletic. Now, Oldham Athletic didn't own the ground; it was literally just a piece of paper.
Mm.
And I had the sublime to the ridiculous of people that came forward. One in particular from a Norwegian individual, which, if you want, we can come on and chat to. But we had hoaxes, we had people that were interested in the land, but not necessarily the club. So
Mm.
I found myself in a real difficult position whereby the clock was ticking, the season was getting closer. I had the EFL sort of saying to me, right, well, you need £500,000 in the bank to have the golden share
Mm.
of, otherwise Oldham Athletic will go bust. and a bit like what's happened to Bury, it will disappear.
Yes.
So as I say, I looked high and low for any person that could buy Oldham Athletic. And we managed to get a consortium of people together that we could raise money. We did a fundraising event with the trust of Oldham Athletic at the time, and managed to somehow get together roughly £750,000
Mm.
ring fenced to keep that club alive. But it needed a buyer. So lo and behold, me and the accountants at the time, a gentleman called Neil Joy, decided, well, we've got to buy the club, and we bought it for £1. And the EFL were happy with that because then we could play the games for the season. And we always said, well, look, we've got 500,000 in the bank. We can live on playing a very basic team to try and get some results and just see how we go. And in the while the season's up and running, try and find some investors or try and find somebody who would come and buy the club. And I always remember, I mean, it was very high profile at the time. I found myself on Sky Sports almost weekly, BBC Radio Manchester, Five Live were wanting to know what was happening with the club. And we put it through what's called a CVA to diminish the debts. So we got the debts down from 6 million to I think 1.5 million, so we could service that debt and play the games. And we played Brighton in the first game of the season, and Brighton under Steve Coppell beat us 3-1. But I always remember Steve Coppell came up to me, and he'd obviously seen and done his homework, and he said, Sean, keep doing what you're doing. And I adored Steve Coppell as a player back in
Good
the day.
player.
So that was a real boost for me that somebody of his caliber had actually said, keep doing what you're doing. And we did. John Sheridan was manager. We went to Sheffield Wednesday and we got a point. I think it was about the third or fourth game. Got a point, 2-2. And I thought, great, we're up and running. At least we're fighting. And in that time, in that sort of first 10 fixtures of the season, I was still on the lookout to try and get somebody who could maybe take over the club, because I wasn't a wealthy, and to this day, I'm still not a wealthy individual. But we've managed to find three American-based business people
Mm.
that were interested in buying Oldham Athletic. They were actually born and bred in London, but they'd moved to America, New York, made their money in New York, and actually wanted to buy a football club in the UK. They tried to buy Hull City, failed on that, and then Oldham became aware of Oldham. So I had a number of conversations with them, and eventually they decided to buy the club. And for me, I'd done my bit to keep the club alive, keep it in the Football League, um, try and get the fan base behind it. And that's probably as far as I could have taken it at that time. So these three English lads who were
Mm.
based in New York then came and took it on, and they I think they were there for maybe about 15 years, 15, 16 years looking after the club, and then they decided to sell it on from there. But I'd moved at that point. I'd spent a couple of years working with them, and that was great. I learned
Yes.
an awful lot. But then I moved to Huddersfield Town and Huddersfield Giants at the time.
Absolutely. You hold your head up high for what you just stated there as well for Oldham Athletic. You really can, Sean. I mean, you also stated at the time, Boundary Park celebrated its centenary when I was at the club back in 2006. and it felt like it was creaking at the time. I
Yeah.
still have a soft spot for Oldham, and the only thing I would say to those in charge at the club is not to give up and to keep on going. And they have, albeit in the fifth tier, obviously, of the English Football League, as mentioned earlier, in the National League, applying their trade in the National League. I mean, do you still keep in touch with the club, Sean? I think you probably do. You're going back there at Christmas, as you said earlier on, to see a match. But yeah, keep in touch. Why not?
Yeah,
You've got
oh,
a rich tapestry of
absolutely.
life there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lee Royal is a friend of mine, and we exchange a couple of text messages every now and again.
Wonderful.
And I think him and his team are doing an excellent job. And the three lads that owned it prior to Lee built a new stand at Boundary Park, which could grace many a division
Yes.
around the world. It really is quite impressive. And what I've seen is that the gates and attendances have all held up. So yeah, do you know, I when I eventually, Lord Russell, hang up my boots,
Mm,
I will visit Boundary Park a couple of times, and I think it still needs to develop a bit more. And I hope that investment in the future is forthcoming. I know they've invested in the pitch. I think the past couple of years they've got a
yes.
new Deso master pitch, which is excellent. It means the standard is far better. So I think the future for them is certainly brighter than what it was when I was there. So I think, as I say, I think they're on the right path, and I think under the stewardship
Yes.
of both Lee and his father, Mr. Royal Joe, there, I think they're on for good things eventually.
That's fantastic to hear. So you could actually put yourself in the, in the closet of saying, I saved the club. If it wasn't for me, Sean Jarvis, the club probably wouldn't have survived. It doesn't sound like it would have done. So you can really hold your head up high there, Sean. You really can. But move
Yeah.
on, you did, making your move across the Pennines in 2006 to what was then arch rivals Huddersfield Town. You initially joined Huddersfield Town in August 2006 to become Director of Business Development of both Huddersfield Town Football Club and the Huddersfield Giants Rugby League side too. So you're throwing in a little bit of rugby now. It's fantastic. I mean, how exciting. I mean, before joining the board of directors in June 2009, I mean, what a story this is, Sean. Huddersfield Town Football Club and Huddersfield Giants Rugby League side. Tremendous.
Yeah, it was it proved to be a truly amazing move for me. And I I'd spent, as I say, a couple of years working with three American lads at Oldham Athletic, which was great, and I learnt a lot. But
Mm,
I'd probably gone as far as I could with Oldham Athletic. And at the time, there was an opportunity to go and work at Huddersfield Town and Huddersfield Giants. Now, during my time in the advertising world, I was involved in what was called the framing of the future. So that was a time when rugby league went from a winter sport to a summer sport. So the likes of Bradford Bulls, Leeds Rhinos, etc., were all born. So I'd got
yes.
considerable amount of knowledge around rugby league. So moving to Huddersfield, which is only 10, 15 minutes away from where I lived in a place called Brighouse, it was a perfect role for me.
Mm,
And I was doing two roles really. One was looking after the football club, and the other one was looking after the rugby club, Huddersfield Giants. So you had Huddersfield Town and Huddersfield Giants, and it was owned by an individual called Ken Davey, who um, is a financial man. So his background very much sort of finances, insurance, and that kind of financial market. And I went to work for Ken, and it was a cautious approach to how business was done for both Giants and Huddersfield Town. And I was working 24/7, 7 days a week, because when the football season finished, the rugby league season started. So I was literally working every single day,
Yes.
and it was taking its toll. But I loved it. Rugby league is an amazing sport. I think when you've got two very similar teams going at each other, there are very few sports that can actually match it as a spectacle.
Agree.
It's truly a great sport in that sense. And I know it's struggling at the moment, but hopefully they'll find some sort of solution.
Absolutely. Very
The football
fast-paced
club,
game.
yeah, amazing game. I mean, truly, when you get those two teams, that are very similar, it can be a great spectacle. It's like the grand finals can be great events as well. Um, so I kind of worked in rugby league and football under Ken Davey, and then Ken decided he wanted to sell the football club. Um, he probably felt he could take it as far as he could, and that it was time for a bit of change. And he uh, found a gentleman called Dean Hoyle. And Dean Hoyle is a successful businessman, very much more entrepreneurial in the sense he came from a retail background. So when you had Ken Davey from a entrepreneurial financial approach, you had Dean Hoyle from an entrepreneurial retail approach. So it's two very different characters.
Definitely, yes.
But Dean came in as chair of the football club, and I worked a little time across both clubs. And then Dean said to me one day, I want you working for Huddersfield Town, not Huddersfield Giants. So I had to make the decision to go and work with Dean, of which I did.
Mm.
Football was probably my first love in terms of sport. So I spent then 15 years working with Dean Hoyle at Huddersfield Town, which was an amazing journey.
Incredible journey. And in your role as commercial director, you are primarily involved in developing new income and sponsorship activities. And of course, you understand the importance of relationship management, which is a great attribute to have, which is instrumental in improving communication and engagement between the club and its supporter base. Amazing. You were the driving force behind the formation of the Huddersfield Town Supporters Association. Amazing relationship management skills indeed, Sean. I mean, you really did put yourself into that club, didn't you?
Yeah, I gave it my all, really.
Yes.
Under Dean's guidance. I mean, he's a Huddersfield lad, and he supported the club since a boy. So he was incredibly passionate, and it was infectious working with Dean. And my MO has always been one of, if you work in a job, you throw yourself into it and you give it your all. I always remember um, when I left school and I worked in Leicester. I worked for the civil service for a year before I went to university, and
Mm.
my old boss used to leave little notes on my desk that were um, around, motivational quotes. And one, he always said to me, I think I must have asked for a pay rise or something, but he actually said, hard efforts have had its own rewards. And to this day, it's resonated with me, and that's always been my case. You put hard effort in, and the harder you try, as Gary Player said, the
Mm.
luckier you get. And that was very much my way of working at Huddersfield Town. And I lived in the area. I understood the area, and going back to that culture, that DNA of a club.
Yes.
I understood those people, and I married a Yorkshire lass, and I kind of became very aware of their mentality around their football club, and for me, understanding that was huge. And uh, a commercial director can sell properties all day long, but I believe in, if you were to sell to a business, I actually believe you're better off listening. If you listen to what it is they want to achieve, what is their objective,
Yes.
and what they really want for their business, then you can create something that helps that business rather than sort of go, well, I'll sell you a perimeter board or sell you a player sponsorship. And I give you an example. I joined after Oldham Athletic. I joined Huddersfield Town, and a friend of mine was the owner of a local pharmaceutical business, and we played football together. And his business was a national business, and I kept going to him for a couple of years. I kept going to him and saying, "Look, can I persuade you to come and sponsor Huddersfield Town, come and be involved?"
Mm.
And he'd always say to me, "Sean, I'm a national business. Huddersfield Town sit in League One. It's a very local business. I'm not really sort of seeing the major benefits for me." So anyway, I must have ground him down to a point where he actually said, "Look, I'll come and see you." And he came into the meeting room with me and he got out his checkbook. He said, "Right, tell me how much a perimeter board is, and I'll write you a check here and now." And I said to him, I said, "Put that away. Let me understand your business and
Mm.
I'll come up with a solution." And he kind of became curious and he said, "Well, look, I sell my products to pharmaceutical companies, pharmacies around the UK. Everybody from London to the northeast, northwest, Wales, places
Mm.
like that. I sell them all over the country." So I said to him, I said, "Right, okay, well, how about um, if I could get you to sponsor the away kit, where every time we play away from home, your logo will be on that away kit. And part of the deal is I give you 2 tickets to the director's box of the opposition. So, for example, if we're playing at, say, Brighton and Hove Albion, we'll be playing in our away kit, which will have your name on it. I'll also then give you 2 tickets so you can entertain the person who is a Brighton and Hove Albion fan, a pharmacist in that area, and
Mm.
take them to that game." And he said, "Can you do that?" I said, "Yeah, of course, we can create a package around it." And that's what we did. We created that very bespoke package that worked for his business, that meant he could go to Brighton, entertain a potential customer in Brighton while extolling the virtues of his brand on the front of the away
Correct.
kit. So it fit with his business objective. And that was always the mentality that we had. We tried to understand what the businesses of Huddersfield wanted to achieve. And in so doing, then created the packages around that that
Yes.
suited them, that helped their business.
And that's
And in
perfect
so
for him.
doing, they then remained long term, and certainly in my 15 years at the club, they remained sponsors of the club, supporters of the club. They did some corporate social responsibility work with us. And that was the whole thing. And it comes back to that culture,
Yes.
that understanding of your community, that understanding, listening. And I think if you do that, then those relationships are far stronger, far more meaningful, far more providing the results that everybody wants. And that was what we were all about as a football club, really, getting to know our community.
Yeah, quite rightly so too. And of course, what you did there was quite an incredible thing because it gave the guy the national coverage he wanted. So the width and breadth of the UK, England, away matches, he had it all there, didn't he? Really, so he could invite people along to the various stadiums up and down the country on away matches with his branding on the shirts and the tickets for the director's box to entertain, just say, his business contacts in those local areas. So it became a national coverage for him, didn't it? Really, which is brilliant.
Absolutely, and that was the case. There
Yeah.
were other ones, like there were other ideas where we had an insurance company that was a local business.
Mm.
And they said to me, said, Sean, I'm really not interested in entertaining on match days. I just want to come to the game and watch the match
Yes.
because I can get quite vocal with my language, quite colourful, and I don't really want somebody next to me when I get so. But he said, I do want to meet the MDs of all the businesses associated to the football club.
Mm.
So then we came up with an idea whereby we said, right, okay, well, 4 times a year, what we'll do is we'll hold a lunch inside the boardroom or the changing room or wherever it may be in the stadium, and we'll invite 10, 15 businesses to come and listen to the manager or the chairman, so Dean Hoyle or David Wagner, and stories of the football club
Mm.
that were outside of match days. And the insurance company loved it. And again, it was all about listening to their objective, creating a package for their objective. And
Definitely.
that then they meant that they would stay on as partners and sponsors of the club, and their businesses would succeed as well. And that was a key thing. Whilst
Mm.
we were successful, we wanted the community and the people of Huddersfield, the businesses of Huddersfield, to be successful as well. That was very much kind of Dean's mantra,
Mm.
where he was passionate about the town and wanted the town to succeed and be successful.
Oh, God, it's a fantastic story, and hugely successful piece of technique on your behalf to understand the client, potential investors. Absolutely perfect. You also became a trustee of the Huddersfield Town Foundation, so more than most, you understood or understand the importance of inclusion, education, and of course, opportunity through sport and activity. You became a perfect ambassador for Rocket, ROKT, Charity Foundation. I mean, that's something as well, isn't it? It's always good to have a bit of charity thrown in too, Sean.
Yeah, I one thing I learned from Dean Hoyle was about giving back,
Mm,
and that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of back here in Leicestershire, and I'm sure we'll come back to that. But Dean Hoyle was had a philanthropic outlook in life,
brilliant.
and uh, the foundation, the charity, the football club's charity
Mm,
at the time was um, really one that kind of delivered programs to schools in terms of learning to play football, which is nothing wrong with that, but it was quite narrowcast in its approach. And Dean actually sort of said to me, "We can do so much more with the foundation, and we can try and raise money for local charities. We can try and help our community." And I'll give you a couple of examples of what we did. So the first one was we wanted to help Yorkshire Air Ambulance, which didn't get any government funding. It really relied on donations to serve helicopters around
yes.
our community. Um, so we sort of said, okay, well, why don't we undertake a fundraiser to try and raise money, hard cash, for this charity, this Yorkshire charity that serves our community. So we created a bike ride. Now
Yeah.
this would be probably some 15, probably longer than that, 15, nearly 20 years ago, where cycling wasn't that popular in the UK. And we created a bike ride that in the first year managed to get, oh, I think it was 21 people to come together, supporters of Huddersfield Town, to
Mm.
cycle from Huddersfield Town to the first away game of the season.
Oh, brilliant.
So I remember a funny little story. I remember chatting to Dean and going, right, okay, let's do this bike ride. And I said, okay, let's wait until the fixtures come out and we'll see where we're cycling to. And I
Exeter
was
City
hoping,
away.
yeah, well, I was hoping for, maybe Oldham Athletic or Leeds United, which
Mm.
were 20 miles. So a 20-mile bike ride would be great, nice and easy. Raise a few quid for cash. And Dean Hoyle went, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I'd rather us announce we're doing the bike ride, and then whoever comes out of the hat, we will cycle to. And I'm kind of going, Dean, this could be anywhere in the UK. And he said, yeah, that's the exciting part of it. Lo and behold, Southend United came out the hat. So we found ourselves faced with a 300-mile bike
Journey.
ride to Southend. So 21 individuals did it. We raised £50,000 on that bike ride that went to the Yorkshire Air Ambulance.
Wonderful.
But that was just the beginning. We enjoyed it so much, and it was a real challenge that we decided that we would then cycle again the following year. And I think we cycled to Brighton the following year. It was the last away fixture of the season, and we did this year on year. Now, the first year we had 21 people. The second year we managed to get 169 cyclists
Wow, what a
from
growth.
Huddersfield Town to cycle from Huddersfield all the way to Brighton. So the roads around Peterborough and all that were chaos at the time,
Mm.
but it was amazing. And we raised, I think we raised about £200,000 that year.
Incredible.
The third year, we managed to get together 250 cyclists that cycled back from Yeovil back to Huddersfield. So we did all these bike rides, and we did them over a period of 10, 12 years, I think it was,
Yes.
and managed to raise £2.5 million for the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, the Huddersfield Town Foundation, and one or two
Incredible.
others. So it was a fantastic initiative that engaged with businesses, that
Yes.
engaged with the fan base, engaged with the community, and really brought in the passion and the whole DNA of Huddersfield Town, which was truly amazing. I said I'd give you another story, which was the foundation. So the foundation delivered football programs, but Dean sort of said to me once, said, I'd like to create a a breakfast club that we can support a local school. So through the relationships that we'd built up around the Huddersfield area, and one of them was a company called Total Food Services that could get the food for us, a food distributor that got the food for us. And we started a breakfast club within a school that actually fed underprivileged kids, pretty much a whole class
Mm.
of kids. Anyway, we then decided that we'd try and raise money for that. We try and get businesses to sponsor it, and to this day, I do believe that the breakfast clubs continue, and that they are feeding thousands and thousands of children who can't afford meals or breakfast. They're
Mm.
feeding those kids prior to school and helping them develop. So we whilst it was great being in charge of a football club and getting to the Premier League, we actually felt that it was so important for us to contribute back to our community, and they were just two examples of what we did, and there's lots more that
Fabulous.
we did as well.
Fabulous. I mean, he was also a director of Huddersfield Town, or Huddersfield Canal Side, the training ground for Huddersfield Town Football Club, and chairman of Place to Make It, a group of local business owners who promoted Huddersfield. I mean, where did you find the time, Sean? You seem to be doing almost everything
It,
whilst you're at Huddersfield Town.
you're right. I think I must be a sucker for punishment. I do try. I do try and help as many people as I can. And so you mentioned Rocked there, which is
Yes,
a local charity in Brighouse. I don't do an awful lot, but I try and repost on social media and help them.
yes,
The place to make it was all about how we as a group of businesses could elevate. Um, Huddersfield as an area. And there were some amazing stories around Huddersfield. So, for example, Huddersfield cloth is very famous.
Mm.
The glass in the London Eye is made in Huddersfield. All those little things that Huddersfield was famous for, we wanted to try and elevate and to try and get out there. So they made me, for my sins, they made me chairman of the place to make it. And I try and help where I can, and sometimes it is minimal because sport can be very time consuming.
Definitely.
But even here in Leicester, I've been a director of the Leicester Business Festival, and
Mm.
I'm now a director of the Leicester Business Voice. So I just try and help wherever I can, and try and use my knowledge and my leverage within sport to try and open new audiences
Yeah,
where I
that's
possibly can.
That's fantastic. A great achievement, that really is. I mean, in football, you delivered excellent results in the last 14 years at the Terriers, a period which saw Huddersfield Town Football Club rise from League One, as we mentioned earlier on, to the top tier of English football. You brokered multi-million pound commercial deals, as we were talking about earlier on, working with many national and international brands, and you led a commercial team to record 8 Football League awards. I mean, that's some record, isn't legacy, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, when I look back, very, very proud
Mm,
of what we achieved, and emphasize the word we, the team that were at that club at that particular time, like any club. There's a
yes.
group of individuals, and the chemistry that we had was really quite special, from the chairman Dean Hoyle, the manager David Wagner, the players Chris Schindler, Michael Heffeler, to staff like individuals that work there, Tracy Nelson, John Williams, Sue Beaumont. They were truly amazing people that were very empowered by what we were trying to achieve at Huddersfield Town.
Mm,
And we gave it everything. We gave the club everything, and to win award after award after award through the Football League
incredible.
was a magnificent achievement. Not just for me, but for the staff as well, because
Oh,
they'd put blood, sweat, and tears into their daily routines. And to this day, there's still a lot of staff there that work there. Robin Deegan, Andy Booth,
mm,
that do an awful lot, continue with this club. So it was huge, and we of course football was the key product, and getting the product right was paramount. And we
mm,
always sort of said, if we can get football right, the rest, as long as we have the infrastructure in place, the rest will start to ignite as well. So getting the football right was number one priority. And Dean Hoyle, David Wagner, Lee Clark, Mark Robbins, Chris Powell, all the managers that worked at Simon Grayson,
yes.
them that worked at Huddersfield Town, I believe contributed their own little bit in their own little way, that culminated in a year whereby the stars aligned.
Mm,
And it felt like everything that we could do went perfectly well. On the
excellent.
pitch, off the pitch, it just seemed like there was this complete unison
Mm,
between Huddersfield, its community, including the fan base, the businesses, with the players on the pitch, the boardroom. Um, it just felt like we'd got the magic right. Now, you never know, because sport has a horrendous habit of biting you on the backside
oh, it
and
does.
bringing you back down to earth. But that particular year, the chemistry was amazing, and I don't believe it's just luck. I actually believe it's the hard work of all those staff plus many, many others. The lottery department, whoever the retail, Luke Cowan, the marketing
Mm,
manager, Jonathan Wilkinson, Karen Hagan, retail, the staff, the chefs, all those individuals. I could name after name after name of all these individuals that were so passionate and so hell bent on giving their all that it just felt that everything we did, we were getting results. And that's what happened, really. I think
mm,
I always remember first couple of games. I think we went to Newcastle in the championship and we won. We won at Newcastle 2-1. And the euphoria of us beating Newcastle, that was early on in the season.
yes.
The euphoria of beating Newcastle St James's 2-1 was amazing. We then went to Aston Villa, and Aston Villa ripped us apart, but we managed to get a draw. And for me, that was the moment that I felt something was happening.
Mm,
We then played Wolves at home and beat Wolves. I think it was 2-1. And I remember saying to Dean, um, we've got a playoff side here. And so it became part of it. We got to the playoffs. And it was just, as I say, it was just magical on all the things that we did and the chemistry that we created, not just inside the club, but outside the club was extra. I think David Wagner used the phrase extraordinary.
mm.
And that's what it was, really.
Fantastic memories and fantastic moments, obviously. Then, of course, in June 2020, you took up your current role as Chief Executive Officer of Leicestershire County Cricket Club, where you are responsible for delivering the strategic plan for the club. I mean, another exciting but difficult times ahead here, Sean, isn't it? What another switch from football to cricket, and you're at it again. Incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, my time at Huddersfield, I spent 15 years there, and it was
Yes.
truly magnificent, truly magnificent. The last 2 years were hard because we've been relegated. Dean Hoyle, change of ownership, and I'd probably become tired. I'd probably done as much as I could. So I kind of wanted to spend a bit of time with my family. And I thought, well, now's the time to step away and let the new generation at Huddersfield Town sort of take over. So I handed in my notice, I think, 4 times before eventually it got accepted. And in that time, I'd been approached by Leicestershire County Cricket Club, of which I was a non-exec director anyway. In
Mm,
my final year at Huddersfield Town, I'd become a non-exec director. But they said to me they wanted me to apply to become chief exec. Um, and I remember driving back up the M1 to my family in Yorkshire, and it didn't take me 30 seconds to decide that I should apply for that role.
indeed, yes.
The reason being, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I was a Leicester lad. I grew up on Leicester Market. I went to school in Leicester. The very first sports ground I ever came to was here at Grace Road.
Mm,
More importantly, however, my father was a huge cricket man. He's been sadly passed away some 20 odd years ago now. But I grew up listening to my dad on BBC Radio Leicester talking about local cricket, writing reports for Leicester Mercury about local cricket. He'd often bring me down here to the ground when I was sort of 6, 7 years old and sit me in the corner. So when that opportunity arose, I couldn't say no. And of course, I'd got best part of 25, 30 years sports administration experience,
exactly.
commercial, marketing, finance, etc., that I could bring to my home club. So it felt like a perfect fit and probably is my swan song in sport, really. I've been here 4 years now. You mentioned there, Lord Russell, 2020 is when I joined.
Yes.
I joined 2 days before COVID, so my first task was to send everybody home.
Oh God.
Well, that was a bit bizarre, but
Wow.
I I've been here 4 years, and it's been again a roller coaster. It's been hard work. It's a real tough gig. Leicester, as a cricket club, has had lots of ups and downs over the years. A lot of misfortune,
Mm,
bad luck. Maybe some poor decisions along the way. Um, so I came here with very much the kind of brief to press the reset button
mm,
and try and look at how we could actually try and move the club forward. And when I look back, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about this, but when I look back, if you'd have said to me 4 years ago, you'll win a bit of silverware, you'll compete for promotion in the county championship, and you'll have two players playing for England, I'd have said you're on cloud cuckoo land. But again, we've worked hard. People behind the scenes have worked extremely hard to deliver um, success. And what I believe is the right foundations for this cricket club to kick on. What one might happen with cricket, we may talk about, but as I say, I think the foundations that we have here now
mm.
and the people that we are still creating, still developing, I think bodes well for the future of Leicestershire County Cricket, despite its ongoing challenges.
Yeah, of course, and there's always going to be ongoing challenges. But you brought a wealth of commercial, as you said, and community specialist knowledge within sport to Leicestershire County Cricket Club, with over 25 years of experience at the executive level within professional sports clubs, including, as discussed earlier, within the Premier League with Huddersfield Town Football Club and the Football League with Oldham Athletic. Not forgetting the launch of Super League. So a real acquisition for a Leicestershire County Cricket Club at the club's as a club CEO, wasn't it? Really, Sean, to be honest, they did well to choose you.
Well, yeah. Yeah, whether it was them choosing me or me choosing them, who knows? But yeah, I think I'm incredibly proud of this club, and
Yes.
again, there's much to do. Don't get me wrong. There's a
Mm.
huge amount of work for us to continue to do to continue to develop this cricket club. But yeah, it felt like a very good fit for me, and hopefully a good fit for Leicestershire. And as you can sort of see behind me, I've got a picture
Yes.
of our one-day trophy in 2023, which means an awful lot to me, and it was a very, very special day.
Ah, absolutely. We'll talk about that bit in a second. But you did state, and I quote, the county is in my DNA. And he mentioned that earlier too, I think. And I'm honoured to be the Chief Executive Officer at Leicestershire County Cricket Club. I look forward to working with the new board and all the staff on developing a new and exciting chapter for our cricket club. So, how is the journey with the Foxes shaping up, Sean, in those last 4 years? You've mentioned a trophy just now. There's been some success, but still some ongoing challenges, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've learnt, and I learnt this probably at Huddersfield Town as well, that
Mm,
success is not linear. It is one that can rapidly go up and
yeah.
rapidly go down. And for me here at Leicestershire, it feels like we're heading in the right direction.
It's good to hear.
Our first task was to develop the cricket side of the club for years. And if you were to analyse the performances over the
Mm,
past I guess, 15 years, you'd see that the club was ranked pretty much bottom of nearly every competition that cricket had, and it was often regarded as the whipping boys of cricket,
Mm,
little old Leicestershire. So we wanted to change that narrative, and over the past 4 years, we've done that. We've if you looked at our team prior to COVID, you'd argue that maybe one or two players were sought after properties.
mm,
Now I could put my hand on heart and actually say that the whole squad would probably get another. If once their contract expires, another county would probably want them. So we've created a team, we've created a culture within the changing room
yes.
that is one about not just competing, but actually about winning now. And, we've worked hard over the past 4 years, and individuals have contributed along the way, including, Dan Weston, who was a big sports analyst that kind of used to do a lot of stats and facts and figures behind for us. Ali Maiden, who
Mm,
part of the academy, Paul Nixon, players that have played for us. All those, they've all contributed to get us to this point. Even though they're not necessarily part of the recent journey, they've all contributed.
of course
I
they
think
have.
now we've got the likes of Claude Henderson, who's director of cricket, John Thorpe, our chairman of the club. At the beginning, I'll just correct you right at the beginning, Lord Russell. You call me chairman. I'm chief exec, not
Chief
chairman.
exec.
Yeah, but that's all right. The chairman's okay with that.
Yeah.
So the chairman in John Thorpe is a great guy, and the triumph of those three individuals, of myself, John Thorpe, Claude Henson, work extremely well together. And then I think from that point, along with the board, it then starts to filter through the whole business.
Of
And
course it
that's what
does.
we're trying to create. And I think where we've started is getting it right on the pitch. And if you look at where we are now, and I've done my own little bit of analysis. I think we were, as I say, ranked about 18th out of 18. I
Mm,
think we're now ranked about 13 out of 18, with the performances that we've put in. So we've certainly shifted the dial a little bit, but the
mm,
desire is to continue that and to get into the top 10 and then really compete at the highest level. I'm a
correct.
big fan of other clubs that have done extremely well, the likes of Somerset, fabulous, and I think that's where we want to get to. We want to get to that level. And I think winning the silverware in 2023 demonstrates we can do it. We've got the knowledge of how to do it. And then it's just getting those stars to align. Much like Huddersfield Town, getting that chemistry right. If that
Yes.
chemistry comes together, then anything is possible and achievable.
Absolutely. And you did recognise the challenge when you said, and I'll quote again, the challenge ahead is not going to be easy, but with hard work, commitment, and the continued support of our stakeholders, members, supporters, and local businesses, I'm sure that our future will be much brighter. So, what would you say the biggest challenge or challenges have been in your tenure as CEO of Leicestershire County Cricket Club
Oh,
to
it's
date?
a magnificent question, Lord
Oh,
Russell. I think um, it's turning the oil tank around.
yes.
It's been harder than I anticipated. Um, but we're now over this 4 year period. We're starting. I think it's about getting friends and friends around you that understand. I think I listened to one of your podcasts with Colin Graves at Yorkshire,
Yes.
and he mentioned about having the right people. And you need the right people that can see inside your mind
Definitely.
and
Yes.
can see inside the chairman's mind and the director of cricket's mind. If you can, the three people at the top, if you can get people underneath that get that vision and want to deliver that vision,
Mm,
then that's when the magic happens. And quoting Colin Graves there, he talks about it's all about getting the right people around you.
it
And
is.
I think that's been the challenge for me. I've been away from Leicester for best part of 25 years. So coming back has been tough, but I've now started to reconnect and we've got people that understand the vision, understand where we're trying to get to, and are working hard. And it comes back to that harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's not just about the commercial director,
Mm,
not just about our stadium manager or the cleaners. It's about our captain, our players, our chairman. If we all work hard, um, then the magic truly can happen.
I agree. I mean, it has been stated that with a record equaling three T20 trophies, which Leicestershire have had, a one-day cup triumph just last year, as you previously mentioned, Sean, and a fierce pursuit of promotion in the county championship, the Foxes are on an unstoppable journey. But the Vitality County Championship Division 2 table shows that Leicestershire have struggled this season with one win from 14 matches, 10 draws and 3 defeats, and sitting in fifth place, well off the promotion places. So what went wrong this season, Sean? And I'm sure the weather didn't help either. Those 10 draws were probably weather created, weren't they?
Yeah, we do I think this season has been one of regression? No, because I think we've emerged with an yet another England player in the likes of Josh Hull.
Yeah,
So I
brilliant.
think I think the season has shown promise and progression, but the results have not quite been there. But I think we got beat by the weather at Derbyshire. I
Yes.
think had Louis Kimber just managed to see out the amazing innings that he did down in Brighton, it might have been a different story. And we found ourselves at a point in the season against Yorkshire
Mm,
whereby we needed to win. We needed to win that game to put ourselves right in the promotion battle. And our pitch was probably a bit of a green top that day. And in my opinion, whoever won that toss on that morning was going to be in the box seat for that fixture.
right.
And of course, the toss went up, and who won it? Yorkshire. So we were always up against it from that lunchtime. I think we were 57 for 7 or something
Mm,
like that. So we were struggling, and I think that was the point our season ended really. But that said, that said, there has been some real highlights from this season. The emergence of Alex Green.
mm.
What a kid that's come through our academy, 17, 6'6", built like a brick, you know what. And I think he's got a tremendous future. The likes of Josh Hull, who has broken into the England setup.
Yes.
You know, Rayan Ahmed, another very promising, talented kid. Tom Scriven, another one who's kind of joined us from Hampshire sort of 3 years ago. I think he's turning into an excellent cricketer. I think Rishi Patel, a tremendous, talented, technically very, very good cricketer
Mm.
who is currently playing out in Australia, I think, and just scored 168 today, I think, off
Wow.
130 boys, so 230 balls. So players like him. So I think we've got the basis, and as I talked about, the foundations. I
Mm.
think we've now got those foundations in place for Leicestershire to kick on. Um,
It's good to hear.
we're still learning in the red ball format. Our players can play all formats. And I think that's one of the things that a club like Leicestershire have to do. We've got to get players that can play all formats. We can't afford a huge squad that is white ball specialists.
Yes.
So it can be a little bit tricky, but I genuinely believe that, and again with Alfonso Thomas, James Taylor now at the helm, Dave Whitmore, Jigger Nate, Dips Patel, Philip De Freitas, Paul Johnson, we've got a real caliber behind them
Mm.
that can actually really develop this club onto greater things. And interestingly, next year is our 50th anniversary of us winning the county championship in 1975 under
Wow.
Ray Illingworth, Jack Birkinshaw, Ken Higgs, etc.
Yes.
So who knows? Maybe next year it might be history repeats itself and
Yes.
we can get promoted.
Absolutely. So there does seem to be hope for 2025, and that's the news I'm hearing as well. But what else do you think does need to change on top of what you've already described, Sean, to ensure a more successful season next year? Any subtle
Yeah,
changes?
yeah, we've got to continue to engage with our community.
Yes.
We've got to get new faces into this ground. We've got to get um, more businesses actively involved in Leicestershire County Cricket Club. And I think
Mm.
we're we're setting plans to do that. We've got a an excellent developing foundation at the moment that is doing some great work in the community, and I think we should start seeing the fruits of that labour over the next couple of years. So we've got to engage with the many diverse areas of Leicestershire to really get bums on seats.
Absolutely.
I think businesses, we've always sort of said that we need as many friends as we possibly can get. And we're in the shadows of Leicester City and Leicester Tigers. Um, so we've got to get more of those local businesses back in Leicestershire cricket, back in us as summer sport.
Yes.
We are beginning to see a few of those green shoots, so that's encouraging. I think we have got to improve our match day experience. We're pretty good, but I want us to be better. I want us to be gold standard.
Mm.
So we've still got a lot to learn, and I think the team that we have in place, the one thing about them is they are passionate and wanting to learn, and they're wanting to develop, and that's not just inside the changing room. That's also in the commercial office,
Yes.
the stadium management office, and we've got some big plans for the ground, and we're working through those. And I think within 5 to 10 years, this club could be a huge cricket club, not just here in the UK, but globally as well. I do believe that.
Well, that'd be good to see, wouldn't it? It really would. Really good to see. It's a
Yeah,
fantastic journey you've been on. So, what is next in the world of Sean Jarvis? What's beyond Leicestershire County Cricket Club?
there's a great question,
Ah,
and if I'm honest, Lord Russell, I don't know the answer.
no.
Um, I I came to Leicestershire knowing that I could help and I could contribute and use the experience that I picked up over the past 25, 30 years in sport and
Yes.
marketing commercial to help the club. And I've always sort of said I want to leave with the right foundations in place
Of course.
and leave by the back door so the next generation can take it on. Um, how long that will be, your guess is as good as mine. But I will eventually go back to Yorkshire and take a bit of time out, take stock of where I am, and maybe there might be another little journey in me with another club somewhere. Who knows? But my lad's just gone to university, so he's having a great time up in Newcastle. My wife still working.
Yes.
So there's a bit of life left in the old dog just yet.
Ah, that's
But,
good to hear.
um, but yeah, we'll see. I think for me, my aspirations for next year are for us to progress again.
Yes.
And I've told the director of cricket I want a bit more silverware in the cabinet. So that's what we're going to aim for next year.
I quite agree too, and I wish you all the best with that and Leicestershire County Cricket Club on the journey in 2025. I'll be certainly keeping my ears to the ground, so let's hope that journey is a successful one as well, Sean. But you know what? I've just looked at the clock. You can't believe this, do you? It's an hour and 20 minutes we've been talking.
Wow.
I mean, you just don't, the time just flies. It's absolutely incredible.
Truly, truly amazing. I mean, there are so many things we could talk about. I
Oh,
could be here till 11, 12 o'clock at night, quite
oh,
easily.
sure, we could actually. There's some massive stories here. Maybe we'll do another show some point in the future.
Mate.
You know, on the back end of a nice cup win next year or promotion.
Abs-
Let's see.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? But as always on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could, as you just said, talk forever, Sean, about your life in business, football, rugby league, and of course in first class cricket too. It's been a huge pleasure as always, and as always, the pleasure is all mine, and of course the show's audience when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. Thank you, Sean. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Sean Jarvis, and I always do this. Nice clap of applause. Fantastic. What a show. It's really good. Do you mind hanging on, Sean, so we have a quick chat afterwards?
Of course, Lord Russell.
And
No
I'll just
problem whatsoever.
I'll wrap up, and I want to talk to you about some business as well, so to help the club. The next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is Standing on Shoulders of Giants. Oh, what a name this is. Where my special guest will be Tony Salini, who was born in the heart of Gostavia, where the Vardar flows in the Republic of North Macedonia. This is where an amazing man's life journey began, a journey from homeless despair to Hollywood's grace. Tony is an award-winning global educator, life strategist, speaker, and published author, a visionary, philanthropist, business coach specialized in human behavior and maximizing human potential, power, and purpose. Crikey, what a job that is. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.